Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, Neil Gibb, as always, and today we're going to be talking about setting yourself up for success. And there's a phrase that we use here at the HMO Property Co with all of our clients, and we always talk about getting people market ready. Now, if you are in the I Love Real Estate community, you will probably already know that Dimp Naboholt talks about this a lot, and the reason that we now use it within our company is because if you are market ready, then you are ready to put offers in on properties when opportunities become available. And a lot of people think that the first step to finding a property is to go out there and look for something, but there's no point looking for something if you don't know what you're looking for. And they say a ship with no sail has no direction, and it's the same as if you just go on realestate.com and start looking for an investment property. First things first, you need to know what you can afford, and that affordability will drive what suburbs you look into and what sort of deals you look for as well. Whether you're looking for a buy and hold strategy, whether you're looking for something to convert into a HMO, or whether you're looking for a value add strategy, manufactured growth strategy, it all is determined by how much money you can borrow. So you get yourself market ready first and foremost. And the way that we do that within our company is if you do become a client with us, first of all, we'll sit you down with our finance team. Our finance team has grown. We've got more than just Elizabeth now. We've got other people that work with us because of the volume of clients that we have. So we've got multiple finance people or multiple finance specialists within our team. We'll connect you with one of them and they will do a high-level fact find on you. And because we know the HMO product and the NDIS product really well, they can do a quick check on you, finances, income, expenditure, etc., and they can work out if you can service a loan for a HMO or an NDIS. Now, this can also be done in the normal lending world as well. If you just want to buy a normal 3, 4, 5, 6% gross yield property, you can get pre-approval on them things, and then you can go out there and then you can ready to purchase property. Now, the next step after we sit with our finance specialist is to then go out and set up a structure to suit the purchasing needs. Now, that structure can be anything from a discretionary trust, a unit trust, a hybrid trust. You can have a corporate trustee, you can have a personal trustee, you can buy it in your own name. There's multiple ways that you can buy properties. The most common structure that we see and use here at the HMO Property Co is the discretionary trust with a corporate trustee. And the shareholding in that corporate trustee used to be held in a separate trust with a personal trustee. But the lenders have changed now and they've said that they want to see the shares held in personal names, so beneficially held, which means that there used to be that added layer of security. Now they've made us say that if we have a discretionary trust with a corporate trustee, the shareholder is Neil and Joe Gibb, for example. Going back to getting market ready, the key to building a successful property portfolio is the amount of properties you can purchase, and the amount of properties you can purchase is determined by how much money you can borrow. The more money you can borrow, the bigger your portfolio can be, and you can leverage more and more and more. And the banks prefer to lend money to people if they know they can get it back. Banks are very risk averse, but they will lend you money. Now, the latest stats from CoreLogic say that the real estate market in Australia is worth about $1 trillion, and they reckon that only 20% of that market is mortgaged. So it's a very, very small percentage of the market that's actually got borrowing against it. 80% of the market is unencumbered, owned outright without a bank. But the banks are still making record profit even off just that 20% of the market, right? So last year, 2023, the big four banks between them made 44 billion in profit. 44 billion in profit from lending out your money to other people so they can do deals, whether that's a business deal, whether that's a real estate transaction, whatever it is. But Commonwealth Bank made 14 billion in 23. Westpac made 10 billion. NAB made 10 billion and ANZ made 10 billion. So between them, 44 billion. And if you've come across a guy called Graham Holm, the money mentor, he's got some great names for these. So he calls Conbank Conbank. He calls Westpac Theft Pack, and he calls NAB Grab, and he calls ANZ shareholder gains, as in GAINZ. If you haven't heard from Graham, go and check him out. He's done some good podcasts just recently with the guys from Both Side Podcast, I think it's called. Really, really informative, really, really good stuff. Check him out, Graham Holm, the money mentor. But anyway, back to this. So first of all, the easiest way to access more money from the banks is to have good serviceability, good borrowing capacity. Now, there's a difference between borrowing capacity and serviceability. Borrowing capacity is how much you can borrow at that instant in time, and that's mainly determined by your capital, i.e. your savings and equity. So if you've got no savings and you've got no equity, the chances of you being able to borrow money off the bank is slim, because they always want you to put skin in the game. Whether you're putting 5% down, 10% down, 20% down, depending on the lenders, depending on what you're borrowing, depending on what you're investing in, their risk tolerance from you will change. And serviceability is how much loan you can service, which is determined by your income and your expenses. And that's essentially your disposable income. So from what you make, what is your expenses and how much have you got left to then play with in investing. Sometimes these numbers can be very similar, and other times they can be greatly different. But the only way to increase your serviceability is by increasing your income and reducing your expenses. So what are expenses? They are home loans, investment loans, credit cards. They can be personal loans. They can be, what's that dodgy one called, where you go to Good Guys and you come out with a brand new TV and you haven't paid for it because you've got it on Easy Pay. Easy Pay, that's the one. Don't get me wrong, guys, I love a bit of Easy Pay. I've got a beautiful television at home which I bought in Easy Pay, but then I tried to apply for a loan about 6 months later, and my broker said to me, "Why have you done that?" And it's just nice to get a TV without paying for it, am I right? But you pay for it in the long run, so I had to quickly pay that loan off so that we could then access more lending. So back to borrowing capacities and serviceabilities. On average, people have lost 30% of their borrowing capacity over the last few years with rate increases. That means people can borrow 30% less of what they could pre the cash rate increases. And the reason for that is, again, banks are risk averse, and the more expenses you've got, as in investment loans, and if you were taking loans out at 3-4% and now they're at 5-6%, your borrowing capacity has dropped. Your serviceability has dropped because you can't borrow as much money from the bank because your disposable income is now getting chewed up in repayments on the other loans that you've got. So again, going back to increasing your income and decreasing your expenses, how can you do that? Well, let's talk about good debt and bad debt. If you've got any bad debt in your name, and bad debt is debt that you have to service yourself, and I'm going to class your principal place of residence in that category. A lot of people think their home is an asset. To a certain degree it is. To a certain degree it's a liability when it comes to lending. That's because if you are living in a house that is costing you $5 or $6 grand a month to live in mortgage payments alone, and then you've got to add on all your bills, your water, your electric, your gas, your insurances, yada, yada, yada. The bank sees that as a debt that you need to service yourself. Nobody else is going to pay that debt for you. Same as a credit card debt. No one else is going to pay that for you. Same as an Easy Pay debt. If you get your television from Good Guys or Harvey Norman's or wherever you get it from. Oh, God, I think I might need to upgrade my television soon. I went to, where did I go the other day? They just had a huge TV in there, and I was like, oh, that would look nice in my front room. But I resisted because the TV in there is already big enough according to my wife. So the market is still going nuts, right? Even though people have lost 30% of their borrowing capacity over the years. And what is happening in the market now? We are seeing the affordable end of the market rampaging right now. And it's going crazy, even though it's technically 30% harder to get into. And we've still got all these people from Sydney and Melbourne coming over with really deep pockets, and they're just buying up properties at $400,000, $500,000. I mean, you look at Armadale, it's seen something like 45% capital growth over the last 18 months to 2 years. Places like Gosnells, places like Mandurah. This is because the affordable side of things, affordable accommodation never goes out of fashion. People always need affordable accommodation. When the market is flat, generally markets are flat because people have lost their jobs or there's not as much employment around, so people aren't earning as much money. And the biggest reoccurring income for anybody in their life is accommodation. And the Australian government say that if you're spending more than 30% of your gross income on accommodation, you are technically classed as being in housing stress. So when people are losing their jobs and their biggest expense is housing, then what's the one thing that people try to cut back on? Housing. You try and limit the biggest expense that you've got, and this is when the HMO is super, super attractive. And we've got great experience and a track record in this space as well, because we started the business back in 2015. This is when the market was, on a decline, whatever you want to call it. Vacancy rates at the time were sitting around 7.3%. Yet the HMO Property Co was still filling 5 and 6 bedroom houses within 3 weeks, and the same property or the properties next door was sitting on the market for 6 months, and they were just getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Nowhere near as cheap as what you can rent a room for in a HMO, but still getting cheaper, but just not affordable for everybody. And when you offer something convenient like a HMO room that's fully furnished with all bills included, then people will rent that all day long because it's affordable, and they need to bring down their housing expenses because people are losing jobs, wages are coming down, and everybody needs to save money. Now let's look at the flip side of the market that we're in now. Two things that drive supply and demand. There's not enough supply, but there's heaps of demand. Why is there heaps of demand? Because there's heaps of jobs. Lots of people are coming to Perth now because there is work here and it's a good place to live. And people are actually selling their properties in Sydney. Let's say they bought a property for 500 grand 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's now worth 1.5, but they've got no mortgage on it. Remember, 80% of the real estate market is unencumbered with no debt. So they're selling that property. They're cashing out, getting out of Sydney because it's hectic. It's very similar to London. I love visiting Sydney, but I love getting out there as well because Perth's just mint. People are selling their big properties. They're coming over here. They're buying something for a fraction of the price. Let's say they're paying $800,000. They've still got money in the bank after they've done that as well, and then they're retiring over in Perth and just having a nice laid-back lifestyle away from the hustle and bustle of Sydney. We've got the beautiful Perth weather, the beautiful beaches, the restaurants, the coffee. Oof, stop it. So even though the market is going crazy right now, it's the affordable end of the market that's moving because that's where people can afford to buy. People are trying to save money right now because the living expenses are getting out of control because the market is galloping forward. And where we used to have a big gap between, there used to be a low point of the market, a high point of the market, and a median. That low point is now pushing up towards the median, which is making that strip really thin. And where we used to have big variables between suburb to suburb, it's now becoming a really thin variable. It's not as big. So we're seeing properties in Armadale now worth $450,000, and then you can go down the road, Banksia Grove or something like that, and you pick something up for $550,000, $600,000, where before properties in Armadale were $200,000 and properties in Banksia Grove are probably $400,000. So it's moving up, it's catching up, and we're seeing the bottom end of the market move a lot faster at the minute, but a rising tide lifts all ships, remember? So what's going to happen when the cash rate comes down and people get more of their borrowing capacity back? Is that going to push people into the next price bracket? Is it going to push them from the $400,000 to $500,000 properties up to the $700,000 properties? Are these properties in Armadale, Gosnells, Mandurah, are they getting too expensive to rent now? So when people are looking at what they can rent in Mandurah and then they go, oh, well, I can live in Coburn for an extra $50 a week, where would you rather live? Depends on your circumstances, depends on where you work, depends on where you want to live in them areas. But with a HMO, we see a lot of our tenants want to live in these areas because they either work in them areas, they either grew up in these areas, or they've got family in these areas, or they've got friends in them areas. Everybody thinks you need to have them close to the CBD. It's not true. It's not true at all. So typically a 1% change in the cash rate would roughly be a 10% increase in borrowing capacity. So if we go from whatever we're at now, I think it's 4.35, let's say we get a 0.5% drop in the cash rate, and that flows through to the banks, and the banks pass that on, then people have a 5% increase in borrowing capacity. That means people will then start buying more. And by the way, the markets are driven by emotion. We spoke about this before. The minute the cash rate drops, it's going to change a lot of the perception in the market. We're already seeing it now. I feel the market, even at the price point of HMOs currently, if we go back 12 months ago when the cash rate was increasing, there was a lot of uncertainty in the market, and a lot of people sat on the fence and didn't want to move forward. But now we're just seeing aggressively move forward. Our sales cycle from somebody reaching out to us to becoming a client in the business is shortened compared to what it was last time. And that's a metric that we measure. You cannot master what you do not measure. So we measure a lot of things at this business, and we're seeing that sales cycle is shortening because people are now thinking, all right, this is the new norm. Construction prices are plateaued out. The cash rate leveled out for the last few releases from the RBA. So maybe this is the new norm. So that's given people some confidence to move forward. Now, if the cash rate drops down by 0.5% or even 1%, there's going to be a stampede in the market. People's perceptions are going to change. People's risk appetite is going to change, and people are going to come back into the market, and it's just going to push the Perth market even further. Now, going back to getting market ready, there is three things that you can do really to get yourself market ready, even before speaking to your broker. You can find out what your credit score is, and you can go to, I think it's Experian.com. Experian.com, and you can get a free credit check on yourself. And Experian's really good because first of all, it gives you a gauge from 0 to 1,000 on where your credit score is. Obviously, the higher it can be, the better. We got some feedback from one of our finance specialists that it needs to be over 750 for you to access lending. That might be just with some of the lenders that we work with. I'm not saying that's a blanket score across the lending landscape, because I'm not a broker, I'm not a specialist. I rely on the specialists to give me some of the information that I need to make the informed decisions that we need to make. But on your Experian thing, you can see all of the loans that you've got in your personal name, and then you can see some of the loans that you've got in your business as well. So my American Express for my business shows up on my personal credit file, but in the business section, and then in the personal section it shows all the loans that are in my personal name. Now, I'm not saying that this is, well, let's just say this is the reason that we use trust structures, because in a trust structure, you don't own the property, the structure owns the property, you're the guarantor for the loan, but none of the loans that I'm a guarantor for show up on my credit file, which is interesting. It does show you, though, how many companies I am a director of, and this is why you need the right team around you. So you can see all of your payments on your credit card as well, or your loans, or your mortgage, and it'll also tell you if any of them have defaulted, or if you've been late on any of them loans as well. So log in Experian.com, I think it's .com or .com.au. You can see all of the credit inquiries on your file. Sorry, couldn't get my words out there as well. So if you've been applying for a lot of finance, i.e. easy pay for a television at Good Guys, these things show up. Even if you don't get approved, it still shows up on your credit file that you've been applying for credit. And someone in my finance teams called it footprints on your credit file. So get yourself a good broker. Don't get yourself a good broker, get yourself the best in the game. They can also check your credit score for you if you're too lazy and you don't want to do that. But if you can get your credit score above 750, that's a good benchmark to work with. So back to how to increase your borrowing capacity. Very simple, guys. Earn more money. How can you earn more money? Is it that simple? Well, you can either try and get a rise at work, a raise. Try and get promoted at work, which will in turn increase your income. You can set up a little side hustle. There's plenty of ways that you can make money online now. Got e-commerce arbitrage, Airbnb arbitrage, HMO arbitrage. You can make money without actually owning anything right now. And I've already done a podcast on this. This was how I paid $17,000 for my $100,000 Range Rover from a property that I don't even own. And it cost me a small amount of money to set that up. But the cash flow from that investment pays for the lease on the Range Rover. It's pretty cool. You can do these over and over again. I'll try and get a rent-to-rent expert on the podcast. Maybe someone from the UK, but yeah, sit tight. I'll try and do that. So you've either got to increase your income by getting a promotion, increasing how much you earn, side hustles, etc., etc., etc. Paying down debt. If you've got a credit card, get rid of it altogether. Some lenders, even if you've got a 10 grand limit, but there's zero spending on the card, they'll still use that 10 grand limit, as in you've got access to finance. So either bring it down to the minimum, which sometimes is around 3 grand, or just get rid of it altogether if you don't need it. If you've got negatively geared properties right now, that will be affecting your serviceability, because if we go back to the start of the podcast, serviceability is how much loan you can service, determined by your income and your expenses. And if you are using money from your income to prop up a negatively geared property, that will affect your serviceability. Why? Because every month you are having to commit $100, $200, $300 to that property to make it work as an investment property. And this is why we always talk about investing in cash flow positive properties at the HMO Property Club, because not only does it work when you're not working, it puts money in your pocket every single month. And if you structure yourself correctly, you can increase your serviceability by adding that cash flow to your income. Again, you need to get some specialist advice around that, but it can be done. Paying down debts, credit cards, easy pay loans, all the things, car loans, that's another one as well. Again, if you've got any debt and you've got savings in the bank, use your savings to pay down that debt, get rid of it, and then start saving up again. Because debt compounds the same as money compounds, same as interest compounds. You need to pay off that highest interest on your credit card first. I might actually do a podcast on paying down debt and getting yourself out of a bit of a hole, because I've been there, I've done that. When I started this journey, I had a $70,000 tax bill because I didn't understand money. This was back in 2013. Worked offshore, set up my own company, and all the money that I earned I just spent, and then the tax man sent me a tax bill. And I also was out of work for quite a long time as well, so I racked up some credit card debt, and then I smashed that down rapidly. So there could be a podcast coming up soon. So, all right, so the only way to increase your borrowing capacity is to earn more money. Work harder or smarter or both, but remember, you need to work hard enough to not have to work hard again. There is an element of hard work that you need to do. When we spoke about live a few years like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And when I came out of working away and I had that tax debt and I had that credit card debt, Joe and I knuckled down, smashed all the debt, saved up heaps of money, got creative with our investing, got creative with our projects, did joint ventures, seller JVs, working partner JVs, capital JVs. Like there's many ways that you can get yourself from where you are now to where you want to be, but it's going to take hard work, sweat, roll up your sleeves, get in there. So you need to increase your income. Every dollar that you're negatively geared property reduces your serviceability. So invest in cash flow positive properties, structure yourself correctly, reduce the total of your credit card limits. In fact, just get rid of your credit cards altogether. Pay off all personal loans, Latitude, Afterpay, Easy Pay, whatever they're called nowadays, get rid of them. Use a mortgage broker to spread your exposure across multiple lenders or multiple structures. Avoid cross-collateralization if you can, guys. Again, get yourself the right broker. The right broker can give you all of this advice and set you up. If you're just looking to start investing now, get the team around you now that can take you forward. And when you have that conversation with them, tell them that you want to buy 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 properties. You don't want to buy one in your own name, because going back to your Experian credit file, it shows up in your own name. It's a debt that you need to service. And there's money that comes out of your pocket that needs to keep that property alive. So cash flow positive properties are the way forward. And even with interest rates where they are now, the HMO is still cash flow positive. So That's all I've got for you today, guys. Getting yourself market ready, getting yourself set up for success. And I've got a little sign off now. It's dream big, start small, but most importantly, start now. The journey to success begins with a single step. Thanks, guys. See you all next week.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.